Now you might be saying, what the heck are we looking at here? Did Farmer Vic create something just totally outrageous? And I don't mean that disrespectful at all to farmers. Farmers are some of the most innovative people that I've ever had the privilege of hanging out with. And that's exactly what happened here. Someone was looking for a solution to wind bobbins for this machine over here that I got in for service. I was actually I was going to say off campus. I was away from the workshop because this customer is connected with the local quilting group that I've had the privilege to get to know, and she's been having chronic issues with this particular machine off and on, it seems like forever. And she had a friend over, they were trying to do a quilt, and this machine just started acting up like there was no tomorrow. No matter what they tried, no matter how they tried to intervene, they could not resolve the issue with this machine. And I haven't even told you what it is yet. This is a Singer 96K41. A Singer 96K41, which I've never shown on this channel before. It's a light industrial machine. It can be driven by a servo motor, it can be driven by a standard motor, which is how this one is set up, or it could even be driven technically by a treadle type setup as well. But it's a meaty machine. It's you know, able to sew pretty much anything you put underneath that presser foot. It's got a lot of kick to it. But the problem with this machine is it takes a specialized needle. It also has a very specific need as far as bobbin case as well. Both of those were off target as far as this customer by the name of Deb trying to get this machine to work for her consistently. And beyond that, it also takes a specialized bobbin. So you run into all kinds of specialty issues with this machine. Not to mention, you can't see because I've got my U.S. Army grade canvas material in position underneath the presser foot, but there's no feed dogs on this machine either. So it's a pull and play type machine where depending on how fast you pull that material through that presser foot space determines the length of that stitch. There's no stitch adjustment on this machine. There is a speed adjustment over here to the right, the way it's been set up. Depending on how you rotate that little gold knob, you can either race like a banshee or you can slow it down within a reasonable rate of speed so that you can manage the stitch output on that. But you can see as we come up the machine here, there's our nomenclature plate right there where you can see the 96K41. So I really had to go on a search and destroy mission to find what this customer needed to get this machine running properly. This is the thread back here that she had it threaded up with, and rather than just going with a standard quilting type thread, I wanted to really put this thing through the paces. Once I got all the adjustments done, I had to do some movement on the hook, and it was just a whole litany of things. So I added some standard upholstery style thread both on top and also on the bobbin replacement that I put in the machine, on the replacement bobbin as well. So, and then also had to disassemble this upper tension, which is a pretty standard upper tension that you would find on a older vintage style machine. It's nothing specialized, although the tension release pin in the back is a little bit longer than you would traditionally see. And then the question of how to orientate the bobbin thread in the bobbin case, the question of how to orientate the needle, which has a notch and a groove on it, the question of how to thread the machine was even you know, something that, you know, when I visited this customer out at their sewing place, that was even in question. At the time, they had it threaded through all three of the eyelets instead of just the center eyelet as I have it now. And she kept experiencing thread breaks, and that's because this thing really yanks that thread through, and you really have to limit the friction that's going to be generated when this thread is coming through, eliminate down to 1 instead of starting at the top, going to the middle, and then coming through the bottom one, and then finally coming down through the tension control. So her challenge was multifaceted, was using the wrong bobbin. The bobbin case was defective that she had. The threading was incorrect. The orientation of the needle was incorrect. And also the feed of the bobbin coming through that bobbin case was orientated the wrong way as well. So we had all kinds of issues working against us, trying to prevent us from being successful with this Singer 96K41. But as usual, through a little bit of tenacity, persistence, not to mention the ability to order through Amazon and also eBay as well. I had to go through both venues to get all the things that I needed. We've got a machine that's pretty perky and pretty happy now. And this machine is also going to be working with that bobbin winder you saw in the opening shot in this video. So I'm going to show you real quick how this kind of works. It's already plugged in, it's already ready to go. Back here, just behind the pillar, you can just barely see it, is basically the equivalent of a presser, of a foot controller that's been adapted for this machine, and that's how you're going to actuate the motor that's on the other side of this pillar. And then again, you've got no feed dogs, so you're going to be pulling this material through, and the faster you pull it, the bigger the stitches. The slower you pull it, the smaller the stitches. So I'll try to demonstrate that for you real quick. I'm going to come out a little bit on this shot and see if we can get this Singer 96K41 to sew off a couple of rows of stitches for us so that I can get this puppy working again. And we'll put on a little bit of pop music too, just to have a little background music while we're putting this light industrial machine to work. So with a machine like this, because you have no feed dogs, you basically have to grab the material on the back side of where that presser foot is, and as soon as you kick that power in, you better get ready to start pulling. Otherwise you're going to have a mess. I'm going to kind of kneel down and then I'll try to sew off a row of stitches for you. All right, here we go. This is fun. There we go. Get that presser foot up. You can see right there, that's what we just stitched off. You're looking at a stitch that's probably, maybe about 15 stitches per inch, 10 to 15 stitches per inch. There's our lock stitch on the back right there, you can see it. I'll do one more row and we'll kind of go through a little bit faster so that I can show you a longer stitch length with this by a quicker pull when you come through that, come over those, I was almost going to say come over those feed dogs, but there are no feed dogs on this machine. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this back into place again. This time we'll pull a little bit faster and we'll get a noticeably longer stitch off of this 96K41. Here we go. Alright, let me get this in place, and you'll see the difference that you can generate just by the speed and the rate of your pull. So here's the first stitch off we did up here, where we probably have about, I'm guessing an inch. An inch is probably about 10 stitches per inch on this upper row. And then we did a faster pull on this lower row here, and we've got probably the equivalent of about 6 stitches per inch. Noticeably different between the top and the bottom. And all it is a matter of how fast we pulled that material underneath that presser foot, because again, as you can see now in the shot, if I get the material out of the way, we've got no feed dogs on our throat plate. It's just a product of pulling it through. And then we've also got, I would say, a fairly decent lock stitch, although again we're dealing with upholstery material top and bottom, and you've got to increase that upper tension quite a bit more in order to pull that taut, because we're dealing with heavy thread top and bottom, probably a size of about 89. And so we're here, we've got a much smaller stitch because of our rate of pull, and I would say that lock stitch looks pretty good. Here we've got a little bit of a wavy look to it, just because we didn't adjust that upper tension to compensate for that heavier thread top and bottom, and then that much longer stitch where we have that spans and it's not pulling up hard enough from that upper tension. And now I'll try to see if I can do one more, and we'll get it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it right in the middle. I'm not really masterful at this pull thing yet. I'm used to having the luxury of feed dogs working for me, but let's see what happens. So I'll try to go kind of in between these two. Also, I'm going to make a slight adjustment on my upper tension off camera here and see if I can get a little bit less of that wave as far as the appearance of the stitch. So here we go. And I almost replicated the first sew off there with about the same size stitching. Actually, I think I may even gotten a little bit smaller on the stitching, so my pull was even slower than the first time. Again, the slower the pull, the smaller the stitching. This is the first one we did up here. This is stitch off number 1. Again, about 10 to 12, probably about 10 stitches per inch. We did this one right here, probably about 5 to 6 stitches per inch. And then this is the last one we did right here that we're looking even smaller. So I pulled it through quicker, or I pulled it through slower, I'm sorry. Smaller stitch length means slower pull. So here I probably have about 12 stitches per inch. So a different way of sewing. Really a totally different way of sewing. And you can see, again, because of the upper tension working with a much smaller space to make that stitch taut by pulling that thread up with the upper tension. Our lock stitch on these two smaller stitch sizes is spot on. Here again we have a little bit of a waviness where we made that stitch really long and we didn't increase that upper tension to compensate for that. So I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool way of sewing. It probably requires, I mean, it seems like it requires quite a bit more skill and timing when it comes to getting a decent and consistent stitch output from a light industrial machine like this Singer 96K 41. And again, you know, the manual that this customer has, I really didn't show that to you, is just a makeshift manual that came out of Oklahoma. Nothing against our friends in Grove, Oklahoma, but it leaves a lot to interpretation as you're looking through this manual as far as how to set this machine up for success, how to orientate the needle is kind of obtuse, the bobbin orientation as far as how that thread is going to wind off of there when it's coming through the bobbin case. As the customer and I looked at this manual, I was like, boy, this isn't much of a resource, is it? And she was like, nope, it definitely isn't. So you know, through trial and error, through hit and miss, we figured it out now. So she can annotate some things in this makeshift manual that she got with this machine out of Oklahoma, and can hopefully not have the challenges she had with it anymore. Not to mention she's working with a non-defective bobbin case. She's working with bobbins that are correct for the machine now, and she's working with needles that are correct for the machine. Not to mention the needles are orientated correct as well. So kind of a neat little machine. I shouldn't say neat little, it's actually quite heavy, but If you've never worked with a light industrial machine before, especially one that is not equipped with feed dogs, it'll get you practicing. I know I've only begun to get a hang on it, and I'm bringing it back to the customer tomorrow because she needs it back in order to get back to finishing her quilting. So you know, I don't have a lot of light industrials that come through, but when I do, I find that each one has its own uniquenesses and its own nuances. So you have to kind of relearn it each time and do a lot of trial and error in order to get that machine operating correctly. And now back over to the other workbench where I'm trying to get Deb's bobbin winder just right. She depends on this heavily, and you can see here is the bobbin winding tire that was on this bobbin winder, and I could tell as soon as matter of fact, I'll show you, I'll put that back on there, we'll kind of zoom into here, and as soon as you start to apply that bobbin winder, you'll see this this bobbin tire that she was trying to work with distorting and pitching because it's been used so many times. The rubber is basically kind of broken down and it won't maintain its form. So if we put it on there, snaps on fine, right? Looks great. We can even fire it up without a load. And unless I go really fast, really watch closely, you see that it almost looks like an extension, kind of an illusion of the bobbin tire going up. Well, it is going up. You watch real close towards the top of the bobbin tire. Fine now, right? Okay, now watch now. That sucker is expanding from about, you know, the size that it's supposed to be to almost 2 times the size. So it's definitely not going to work when we put it under a load. We apply this load to it as if we're trying to wind a bobbin. Watch what happens to it then. It's even more dramatic. See it? It's actually coming off of the pulley. And when it's coming off the pulley like that, it's adding a lot of drag to this motor, and it's actually going to cause that motor to overheat. So we definitely need to get rid of this bobbin tire and put one on that's going to fit more snugly around this pulley, and it's not going to distort, and it's not going to create a huge lag on this motor and cause it to overheat. That's what she was experiencing. She said it was smoking. I think she said it might have been sparking as well, and that's all as a result of, first of all, it was real dirty and I had to clean this motor out, but it also was a product of that bobbin tire creating a huge amount of drag on that motor and causing that motor to overheat. So let's get rid of that straight away. We'll get rid of that and set that to the side, and we'll put on a bobbin tire that's going to fit this pulley more snugly. At least I hope it will. Alright, there we go. And hopefully it'll make enough connection with that. I didn't test that before I was on camera, but let's test it without a load, see how she looks. Notice above it where we were seeing that that rubber actually stretching as that pulley was spinning up and it was expanding. Here we're not getting that expansion anymore. And then when we gauge the bobbin winder, hopefully we get a good outcome. Little things can make a huge difference. Something as simple as the fact that this old bobbin tire has been used so long that that rubber softened, and as it was put on a load, put under a load I should say, it was distorting and it was pitching off of that pulley, and it was causing a huge amount of drag on this motor and causing it to overheat. But the long and short of this setup is, this is a nifty little setup. I'm going to expand my shot a little bit, and I would encourage any of you that are looking for a solution, if you've got a light industrial machine and you're saying, you know, I don't want the bobbin winder to be set up like it was designed originally, maybe on a huge industrial style table. I'd love to have something that was portable, Well, here you go. This is standard right here. This is the standard bobbin winding type assembly you would find with a light industrial type machine. It's just mounted to this block of wood, and then you've got this adapter over here that you could plug a light and a motor into. Obviously in this application it's only being set up with the motor plug-in, and you have a standard motor like you would see on any machine. This particular motor is just a generic you know, I hate to say it's a cheapy motor, but it really is, and it's about 0.75 amps. And then they've added this adapted type pulley with this bobbin winder so that they can then interface with this piece here and wind the bobbin. You know, this is where you're going to put your bobbin right there. So I think it's a neat design, and it's just a standard Mercury style foot controller in order to actuate that motor, and it works beautifully once it's all cleaned up and it's operating well. So this will be able to go back into use again. I'm going to do a little bit more cleaning up of the base and everything, because there was like a gumminess all over the end of this pulley assembly, and I used a combination of high grit sandpaper, about 2,000 grit sandpaper, and then also a little bit of steel wool as well to try to get that off, because if you have any of that underneath where that bobbin tire is sitting, that's going to also cause that bobbin tire over time to slip and then become distorted, just like the old one had become. So keep your equipment clean, whether it's a makeshift bobbin winder like this that Deb is using with her Singer 96K41, or any other piece of equipment you're working with. Cleanliness is not only next to godliness, it's also going to maintain your equipment running at an optimal level, and it's going to keep a lot of headaches away from you as you're trying to get these projects completed. So hope you enjoyed this little impromptu video introducing this light industrial Singer 96K41 and its partner in crime, this very clever innovation of a bobbin winding system that is used with this light industrial machine. Alright, so stay tuned for other great videos like this that will introduce you to new things and give you a chance to expand your knowledge within the realm of light industrial machines, household machines, and everything in between. Alright, God bless you. Take care.